on the line with Hit the Ropes Radio. Who are we speaking with?
This is Gregory Iron.
What's going on, Mr. Iron?
How you doing?
Great. We're enjoying a evening here. Our topic is the ladies of professional wrestling. Oddly enough, here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they're battling over straight hair Layla or curly hair Layla. We get deep here. We get deep.
I'm gonna go with straight hair Layla.
Yeah, that's a favorite among many here today. Many here. So
Layla is actually one of my personal favorites. So.
Well, then you and the Stokester are two of a kind there, because he is a Layla fan as well. But
that's good.
What's going on with you here? What are you up to in the day in the life of Mr. Gregory Iron?
Today was sort of more eventful than usual, I guess. Oddly enough, I was at a prison today. I had to occasionally, over the last year or so, PWO, which is my home promotion based out of Cleveland, Pro Wrestling Ohio, they occasionally get these gigs inside of prisons, wrestling in front of inmates, as crazy as that sounds. So today, I worked with the owner of PWO and kind of observed the area in which we're going to be wrestling in a couple weeks on a Wednesday at about 9 a.m. in the morning in front of about 2,000 inmates, as wild as that sounds. And I skipped working out today because it was like a 3-hour drive, and I've just been kind of hanging out all day.
That is interesting. I was a little bit timid when you first mentioned you were in prison because all the wrestlers, not a great combination there.
No, not at all. I'd like to think I'm kind of an inspirational guy. So to start this interview with saying that I just came from prison today, that's a little bit of an odd start, but I had a good reason.
Well, at least you didn't have to post bail to get out. So.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, let's talk about inspirational, and you've got a very inspirational story, which I'm sure you've been spreading with each and everybody now. From what I understand here, you've been going for about 5 years. We've seen you. Your PWO is your home, as you mentioned, in Shikara. You've popped into there, but for those who don't know about you and your inspirational story, if you could just give us a quick backdrop.
Yeah, I'm 24 years old. I've been wrestling for 5 years, but I guess before I even got into wrestling, we got to start at birth. When I was born, obviously a big part of my story is I was born with cerebral palsy. And what cerebral palsy is basically it's a disability that affects my brain, and it affects the way my brain sends the signals to the right side of my body. It varies in different people. Some people are in wheelchairs. Some people don't have control of their speech or their thinking. Some people are on crutches. Me particularly, it mostly affects my right arm and my hand, and it kind of affects my leg. I've always walked with a slight limp. I was born a month premature. I weighed about a pound. It's actually a miracle I'm still alive. Because of all that, I was in the incubator for the first 3 months. After I was born, actually, no one knew that I had cerebral palsy. It took till about 9 or 10 months old when my dad was laid off from work, and he would take me out of my crib, and he would notice, as he would sit me on the floor around all of my toys, that I would keep my right arm clenched, and I would only grab the toys with my left arm. So they kind of thought this was kind of weird. My mom and dad ended up taking me to the doctor. That's when they diagnosed me. From there, went to therapy until I was 7 years old. And basically we worked on muscle control, things of that nature, to try to make my disability better. Throughout all that, when I was about 4 or 5, because of my grandma, I discovered pro wrestling. And, once I got into school and everything, I started to realize I was different than people, and I would get teased and made fun of. And my mom had a lot of problems, but my grandma was kind of always the glue that held the family together. And when I could spend time with her, and I could watch wrestling on, Sundays, watch Superstars or watch Raw on Monday, none of that stuff mattered. I was lost in this larger-than-life world with these great heroic characters like Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage and Bret Hart, guys like that. They made me think that, nothing could be wrong in life. They made me forget about all my problems. And when I was about 8 years old, my grandma passed away of bone cancer. So I think when she died, it was kind of something I latched onto, professional wrestling, because it was a bond that we had so strong together. And her being the glue that held my family together. When she passed, she was actually my mom's mom. So when she died, my mom kind of took a turn for the worse, and she started using drugs more heavily, specifically crack cocaine. And it really tore my family apart. I have two other brothers, and obviously my dad, she would always steal from us and sell things, anything that she could do to get her fix. And there's so many stories I can go into and so many things that she did, but the bottom line is basically her drug addiction tore our family apart. Me and my brothers almost got taken away from my dad. We went through a year phase where we had to live with her by ourselves, and she would be out all night, partying and doing drugs and leaving us home alone when we were, my brother was a newborn baby, and me and my brother Mike were, 9 and 10 years old. But basically, through all that, all the hardships, one thing that always kept me grounded, kept me focused, and made me think that everything was going to be okay was my love for pro wrestling. And as I got older, wrestling got hotter. I realized I wasn't going to grow out of it, especially when the Attitude Era started. Everybody was into wrestling. And I was trying to figure out a way how I could get into the business. But I never thought that I could be a pro wrestler. I guess a good thing to say, or the typical thing to say is, from the moment I was born, the first time I saw wrestling, I knew I was going to be a wrestler. But I didn't think those things because I never thought it was possible because of the disability I was born with. But I kind of got a feeling that I wanted to be a wrestler when I first saw Zack Gowen. He wrestled with one leg. He overcame cancer. And the first time I saw him do that moonsault off the top rope on a big show, I was like, wow, this guy is amazing. If this guy can do it while missing a limb, maybe I can do it with, one fully functional arm. And, I started lifting weights. And when I turned 19 years old, I went to training school, Cleveland All Pro Wrestling with Josh Prohibition and Johnny Gargano, and I guess the rest is history.
Okay, fair enough.
Now, you mentioned...
Go ahead, Shane.
Sorry. Hi, Greg. You mentioned Zack Gowen.
Yeah.
Have you two actually been in the ring together?
Yeah, actually. Well, the funny story is I actually met Zack on a Cleveland All Pro show in October of 2006. Obviously, him being one of my role models, the guy I looked up to, I was kind of blown away. And at that point, when I met him, I'd only been in the ring for about 3 months. And I had, barely a handful of matches under my belt. And I so desperately tried to pick his brain and talk to him. And, back then, Zack had a lot of personal problems. So it was hard to talk to him. And Zack had his own problems to deal with. But I remember, he did give me advice, and I took what I could from him, and I thought to myself, one of my goals from that moment, I was like, one day, I hope I get the opportunity to at least team with him, or he'll actually watch my work, and he'll be proud of me, he will see that I'm passionate about wrestling. He'll see that I've worked hard to at least try to get good. And, from the moment I started wrestling, every promoter that I would run into would always be like, oh, wow, you wrestle with a disability? I'd love to team you up with Zack Gowen, or I'd love to have you wrestle Zack Gowen. That'd be great. But no one would ever do it. And funny thing is, a year and a half ago, finally someone did it in West Virginia. They teamed me and Zack up together, and go figure, we were in a handicap match against this big fat guy. And it had been a couple of years since I've seen Zack, and he just got out of the WWE rehab, and he's doing great now. And he turned his whole life around, and we did the match. We were two completely different guys from the first time we met, and it was so weird to have him compliment my physique and compliment my in-ring ability. I mean, that's exactly what I wanted because I looked up to the guy, but it's just so weird to basically, at this point in my life, to be able to say that Zack's my friend. We talk occasionally. He gives me advice. We have stuff in common. It's really crazy to think that, the guy I used to watch on TV almost 10 years ago, I now talk to on a somewhat regular basis, and he kind of looks at me the same way I look at him as an inspiration. It's pretty cool.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this: when it all began for you, you saw him on TV, then you decided to make that trip. I've heard through previous interviews that you've been teased a lot growing up there. This is not a business for the nice guys. How was the first impressions when you walked in to start training? Did you get a harder time than maybe normal, or was it just a standard treatment?
You know what? When I walked into the school, I don't think I got treated any different than anyone else. I think, looking back, I actually made that first year harder on myself because the thing was, and it's funny reading stuff that Gowen has written and stuff and things that he's told me. It's almost like because we had disabilities, we kind of both, in a sense, had a chip on our shoulder. And I'm glad I grew out of that real quick because my whole life, I had been teased and ridiculed, and I always thought that I had to prove to people by telling them. I had to throw it in their face that I could be better than you think that I am, and I can prove you wrong. I always think I had to tell people that. So when I got into professional wrestling, I was always kind of a quiet and shy kid, but once you got to know me, I like to joke around, I like to kid around, and back then I could get a little cocky, and when I started to pick up stuff, which looking back I wasn't good at all. It took me a couple of years before I actually got good at all, but once in general I was picking up things, and my own biggest enemy when I first started in wrestling was myself, as cliche as that sounds, because I didn't realize that instead of just talking trash, you had to be able to back it up. And furthermore, in wrestling, it's better when you just keep your mouth shut and just go out there and do the best you can. And once I figured that out early on, Josh Prohibition, he pulled me aside, and we had a long talk, and, I really credit him for giving me that one important conversation that if I wouldn't have had, I might not be talking to you on the phone right now, where he pulled me aside and basically said, look, man, if you keep going this way, I don't want to have anything to do with you. So once that happened, my whole demeanor changed, and I realized that I'm just going to shut up. And inside, I know I love wrestling. I know I'm passionate about it. I don't have to tell people every 5 seconds that I'm passionate about it or that I can be good at this if I work hard enough. I'm just going to start showing people that I can be good. And like I said, it took me a while, and it was rough training with a guy like Johnny Gargano right next to me and him helping me train because I always say this, Johnny so much better than a lot of guys for how long had been wrestling. And at this point, Johnny blows a lot of people away in the ring. And it was very hard training alongside Johnny. But once I realized that I didn't have to come up with 3 moves every week like Johnny and just focus on the little things and what I could do with my disability, my character, things got a lot easier. And once I shut up, everything was golden.